It started with a single frame. Not a headline. Not a press conference. Not a player pointing fingers across a diamond. One frame. Pulled from slow-motion footage that the broadcast team almost didn't release. A frame so precise, so uncomfortably clear, that the moment it circulated, the entire conversation around that game stopped being about who won and started being about something far more serious. The Padres ace had made an accusation. He said Ohtani's hit broke the rules. And for about 40 minutes, before the slow-motion footage dropped, some people were willing to entertain that idea. Then the footage came out. And everything changed direction so fast that two Padres players ended up facing severe penalties. Walker Buehler found himself standing in front of a microphone offering a public apology to Shohei Ohtani, and the umpires had to intervene in a situation that had moved well beyond anything their rulebook had prepared them for. This is not a story about a baseball game. This is a story about what happens when accusation meets evidence. When pride meets consequence. And when one of the greatest players on the planet becomes the target of something that had nothing to do with the game being played. Let's go back to the moment the hit happened. Because that moment is where the entire chain of events was set in motion. It was the kind of at-bat that Ohtani makes look routine even when it is anything but. The pitch came in. He read it early. His hips rotated before most hitters would have committed. The barrel of the bat found the ball at exactly the right point in the swing arc. The contact was the kind of contact that makes a sound different from everything else in a baseball game. Crisp. Complete. Final. The ball left the yard. The stadium responded the way it always responds when Ohtani does something like that. With a noise that doesn't quite have a name. Something between disbelief and surrender. In the Padres' dugout, the reaction was quieter. But it was heavier. And in the bullpen, where the Padres' ace had been watching the entire sequence unfold, something shifted. A thought formed. A belief took shape. And that belief, by the time the inning ended, had become a formal accusation. The Padres' ace did not wait until after the game. That was the first thing that surprised people. He didn't hold it until the press conference. He didn't whisper it to a teammate and let it leak slowly. He raised the issue through the appropriate channels during the game itself. He told his bench coach. The bench coach told the interim manager. The interim manager went to the umpires. The conversation on the field lasted several minutes. The umpires gathered. They conferred. They asked for a review of the footage available at that point in the game. The Dodgers dugout was informed that an accusation had been made. Dave Roberts stepped out. His expression was the expression of a man who had heard something so unexpected that his face hadn't yet decided how to respond. The accusation, as it was relayed through official channels, was this. The Padres ace believed that Ohtani's bat had made contact with the ball in a way that violated the rules. Specifically, that there was something about the bat itself, or the mechanics of the swing, that produced results outside the boundaries of what should be legally possible. He used the word illegal. That word traveled fast. For the next 40 minutes, the game continued under a cloud that nobody could quite name. Players on both sides knew something had been raised. Fans in the stadium sensed the disruption without knowing its exact shape. The broadcast team spoke carefully, in the way that broadcast teams speak when they know more than they are ready to say on air. And then the slow-motion footage was released. The footage came from 3 separate camera angles. Each one had been enhanced. Each one had been slowed to a frame rate that allowed the kind of analysis that the naked eye simply cannot perform in real time. The first angle showed the bat path. The second angle showed the point of contact. The third angle showed something that immediately made the room where analysts were reviewing the footage go completely silent. Not because of what it revealed about Ohtani, but because of what it revealed about the ball. The slow-motion footage did not support the accusation. It demolished it. Frame by frame, the analysis showed that Ohtani's bat was regulation. His swing mechanics were legal. The contact point was within every boundary that the rules of baseball define. There was nothing in those frames that supported what the Padres ace had claimed. But that was only the first thing the footage showed. The second thing was more serious. Because in the process of reviewing the slow-motion footage, analysts identified something that had nothing to do with Ohtani's bat. Something that had happened earlier in the at-bat. Something involving two Padres players who had been positioned in ways that, when slowed down and examined from the right angle, told a story that the Padres organization was not going to be able to walk back. The umpires were shown the footage. They intervened urgently. The intervention happened between innings. Which meant the entire stadium watched without knowing exactly what was being discussed. Both managers were called to meet with the umpiring crew near home plate. The conversation lasted longer than any routine rules clarification. At one point, a fourth official joined the group. Documents were produced. The kind of documents that umpires carry for situations that fall outside the boundaries of the standard game. Roberts stood with his arms crossed. His face was unreadable, but his posture communicated something clearly. He had seen the footage. He knew what it showed. He was waiting for the process to reach its conclusion. The Padres' interim manager stood beside his own coaches. His body language told a different story. The certainty that had driven the original accusation was no longer visible. Something had replaced it. Something closer to the specific discomfort of a person who has just realized that the ground beneath their position has shifted completely. When the managers returned to their respective dugouts, the stadium still didn't know what had been decided. It would not be a long wait. The announcement came through official channels before the next inning began. Two Padres players had been identified in the slow-motion footage. The nature of what they had done was not announced in full detail immediately. But the umpires made clear that the matter had been escalated beyond the game itself. League officials had been contacted. The appropriate review process had been initiated. Both players remained in the game. Removal was not the umpire's determination to make unilaterally in this situation. But the escalation to the league meant that whatever came next would arrive quickly and would carry significant weight. Severe penalties. That was the phrase that circulated from people close to the situation. Severe penalties were being discussed. The Padres' dugout absorbed that information in silence. Walker Buehler had not made the accusation. That is important to establish clearly. Buehler was not the Padres' ace who raised the original claim. He was a veteran presence on that roster. A pitcher who understood the game at a level that most players spend careers trying to reach. A man who had been around long enough to know exactly what an accusation like this meant, and exactly what it cost when the accusation turned out to be wrong. After the game, he did not wait to be asked. He walked to the section of the stadium where media were assembled. He asked for a moment. He stood without notes. Without preparation. Without anyone standing beside him for support. And he apologized to Shohei Ohtani. The room was not expecting it. That much was obvious from the way the noise in it shifted when Buehler began speaking. Reporters who had been preparing questions about the penalties, about the footage, about the umpire intervention, put their notepads down slightly and just listened. Buehler's voice was steady. But it carried the weight of someone who understood exactly what he was doing and exactly why it needed to be done. What was said about Shohei's hit was wrong. The footage proved it was wrong. And I think when something is wrong, someone has to say so. I'm saying so now. That accusation should not have been made. And on behalf of this organization, I want Shohei to know that what happened today was not a reflection of the respect we have for what he does on a baseball field. He paused. He's the best player in this game. Probably the best player any of us have ever seen. And he deserved better than what happened today. The room stayed quiet for a moment after he finished. Not the awkward quiet of people searching for a follow-up question. The quiet of people who had just heard something that felt rare. A veteran player from a rival team standing up without being asked and offering a genuine apology to a man who had been wrongly accused. Someone eventually asked if he was speaking for the organization officially. Buehler nodded once. "I'm speaking for myself. But I think the organization would say the same thing if they were standing here." Ohtani was not in the press conference room when Buehler spoke. He had given his own brief media availability earlier. When asked about the accusation, his answer had been characteristically short. He didn't perform outrage. He didn't weaponize the moment. He answered in the measured, forward-facing way that has become the defining feature of how he carries himself in situations designed to destabilize him. The footage speaks for itself. "I trust the process." 6 words that carried more composure than most people could manufacture in a lifetime of trying. Roberts, when asked about Ohtani's response to the day's events, allowed himself a small moment of something that wasn't quite a smile but was close to one. That's who he is. That's who he's always been. You throw something at him that has nothing to do with baseball, and he finds a way to make it about baseball again. That's a skill. I'm not sure it can be taught. The penalties were formalized the following day. Both players were handed suspensions. The length was significant enough that the word severe, which had been used in anticipation, turned out to be accurate. Neither player appealed immediately. Sources close to the situation indicated that the evidence contained in the slow-motion footage left very little room for a successful challenge. The Padres organization released a statement. It was measured in its language. It acknowledged the findings. It expressed that the behavior shown in the footage did not represent the organization's values or standards. It stopped short of naming the players directly in the statement itself, though their identities had already been confirmed through official league communications. The Padres ace who had made the original accusation did not hold a press conference. He did not release a statement through his representatives. He was not made available to media in the days that followed. His silence said more than most statements could have. Mark Pryor, when asked about the broader implications of the day, answered from the place he always answers from. The details. The specifics. The things that happen in the moments nobody else thinks to examine. What the footage showed was that the game protects itself when you let it. The truth was always in those frames. It just needed the right amount of time and the right amount of resolution to become visible. He paused the way he always pauses before saying the thing that actually matters. Nobody touched Shohei's hit. Nobody could. What they tried to do was surround it with enough noise that people might forget to look at the hit itself. That's not a baseball strategy. That's something else entirely. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The Dodgers won the game. They won the series. Ohtani had hit the home run, thrown the innings, and handled the accusation with the same unbroken focus he brings to everything that happens inside the white lines and outside them. But what lingered, after the suspensions were handed down and the footage had been analyzed from every available angle and Walker Buehler had said what he said in that quiet room, was not the score. It was a single image that the slow-motion footage had captured. Ohtani at the moment of contact. The swing already completed. The ball already gone. His eyes already tracking it into the distance. Not aware yet of what was coming. Not aware of the accusation, the intervention, the torn-apart claim that would consume the next several hours. Just a man, a bat, and a ball. And the kind of hit that apparently frightened people enough to make them forget who they were dealing with.